Welcome back to a new episode of Inside Relevance. Today's topic is change. When we experience change that we haven't really initiated, or also when we have initiated it. Change can come in all sorts of facets and colors. When you move to another country, when you move to another house, when your children are leaving the house because they are grown up, when you are leaving a loved one or a loved one is leaving you, when you are pregnant, even with a new haircut, it's a change. When you change your diet, when you change certain habits, when you change your looks, when you change your behavior towards others or just towards one person, with everything that changes, even a disease is a change, or a love letter can be a change too. And with change, I mean the feeling and the energy of change. And change can also feel really eerie and strange. When you realize something around you is changing, then the feeling of change can become really odd. Every time we experience change, our head wants to be efficient. So change is never, the first feeling of change is never efficient. So in this first process, in this first phase, it looks worse than before because you're not on solid ground anymore, and you don't know this new world that you initiated or didn't initiate, but that you're experiencing. And you know, of course, your old situation where you've been in before, and that gives you the illusion of security and control. It just feels secure because you know it. And if you experience change, you also tap into unknown areas. And that's what people call stepping out of the comfort zone. And when you're done with the old and you start the new, that's the part where change can be experienced. So the unknown is also part of change. Being in a in-between state where there's no solid ground to tap on, there's no identification, and it's a very uneasy state to be in. But it's necessary, and it's part of transformation. That's part of the nature of change. You don't know whether the next step is on solid ground or mid-air or what's going to happen. It's a crazy time, and lots of us have that kind of feeling that they are finished with the old and don't know about the new yet. And some of us stay in the old and wait for the new to be constructed or to show itself. And some of us stepped out and are in a kind of waiting room where there's no solid ground to tap on, some kind of nothingness, and it's up in the air. What's next? And some of us are in fear to look at it. And some of us sleep completely and just only their soul and their feelings is sensing that there's a change, because for pretty much all of us, things are changing now. Especially this year, because we come into a new era of time. It's a new era, and I'm a trained historian, and before there were machines, before there was the industrialization, and before there was the globalization, people had their presumptions and society was different, and like a collective way of seeing the world, because the world was how it was. It's again another time, and we're in the middle of it. So we can't really have a historic view on what's happening. As you know, I'm a survivor of 9/11, and I was there at the World Trade Center in New York City when it happened. And while it was happening, I was just taking in so many impressions, and I had no time, there was no room to reflect historically. And I'm sure not for all the people around either. There were first these feelings of shock, not knowing what to do, where to go, what to do with it in the mind, and to digest everything. And the Second World War was also not after it was over in Germany, 1945. For more than a decade, nobody would talk about what happened. The people that are now in their 70s, they didn't get taught anything about Hitler, about the Nazis, about anything. Although they were born after the war, they didn't learn in school about that. Why? Because it was just so fresh, and people were shocked for decades. And they started in the middle of the 70s or in the 80s to teach about that time in school. But before that, it was not possible. And so we are in a change right now that we cannot judge on. We cannot view it from all angles historically, because we are time witnesses. And we're time witnesses of that change. What an exciting time to be in. And for the people, lots of time, fear is a driving factor to oppose against it. Imagine the first train and the first cars on the street, the first machines. That was amazing to look at for the people. But at the same time, there were so many voices that expressed concern that, for example, people might have serious health damaging through being on a train that's so fast, that's 30 kilometers an hour. Today, this makes us laugh, but it was a concern. And before there were machines in the transportation, the people feared that because there will be so many horses on Earth that are transporting people and carriages, that they would drown in horse shit. And with just the invention of machines and the invention of a car, it diverted the whole history of human mankind into a different direction. So we can't really look into the future, what the future brings, and we are in a change, in a social change, psychological change, information change, and with inventing a quantum computer. I don't know whether you looked into that topic, but that's crazy shit. That's really crazy how a quantum computer works. And they still don't know why it works, but and what that means, but it does work. It's the strangest thing. Reality is not what we thought it is. And they found that out more than 100 years ago. But mentally, society is still living in the early 20th century. So we haven't really applied our knowledge to a daily life basis. For me, it's really interesting to see how human mankind has evolved and what kind of collective fears there were before big changes. And when society changed, it's not only with industrialization, when all the machines were invented, but even before that, when we came out of the Middle Ages into a new era of time. And then there were times where romanticism was so important, and when people were thinking and feeling completely different than before. And it's only 100 or 150 years ago that people are getting married because of love, because they feel connected. Before that, marriage was not connected to romance or love. So people's collective mind is changing. And we are now in the 21st century. Also, everybody is underlaying a certain collective mind also. But in order to free yourself from the collective mind, I'm not even sure whether it's really possible, but to make yourself conscious, to become conscious about what society is thinking and what you really believe, it helps to look into the history of human mankind and to get an overview and get a distance to your time, to your being, because you are born into the 21st century. If you were someone else in some other time, what would be left of your essence? What is bound to your society in the 21st century, and what would be your essence anyway? And by doing that, by contemplating on that and reflecting on it, you get a little bit more of a distance. You can see what change does, the artwork of change. And once you know that you're within a change, you can relax more because you know it's a very normal process. And so in order to go forward and to develop, you gotta break into unknown areas and think the unthinkable, try out the impossible, think beyond your comfort zone and relax into the unknown. That's where trust comes in, trust in life. Trust in life is a really helpful tool. With today's topic, I would like to invite you to welcome change into your life, no matter whether you initiated that change or someone else did or life did. And really look into all areas of life where you are undergoing a change. Maybe your body is changing. Maybe the people that you're with are changing. And you can initiate with your own choices change. And stick with that change and go through the uneasy time when the old is finished, but the new is not here yet. So you are in a in-between wobbly state where There's no identification. And Eckhart Tolle actually says you can have much more truthful connection with people and can have much more fun if you lose your identification about yourself, about the world, about the others. If you look with fresh eyes and with a fresh heart and without any expectation of how you should behave or how the other should behave, or with thinking patterns, just basically be and connect with that person. Of course, it takes practice, but it's possible. Appreciate and welcome every change and find out how you can adapt towards it and use it. Or initiate change and know there will be a phase of some kind of oddness, some kind of space in between, no solid ground, but it's normal. So strengthen your trust in yourself. That's the way to grow. You gotta be careful and take care of it so that you're not the victim of your own thoughts and of the consequences of change. So this episode was dedicated to the element of change, the feeling of change, the space that change provides, the emotional part of change. What does change do to us humans? I wish you a happy changing. Much love, Yvonne.